So I think I'm streaming. I should be. I'm talking about some chaos today because cloud, it's something that we've been working toward, and it's one of those things that once upon a time I built cloud, and then anyone who's been following me knows how the story goes that we started with having some hacking tournament with Raspberry Pis, and then it turned into turning one Raspberry Pi that could host multiple Raspberry Pis on its own. And then it turned into just having a Raspberry Pi that let every other people log into it to all connect with each other. And then it just turned into just building cloud. And so here we are today because it's been a long journey of basically going from working with teaching people just cybersecurity to getting a little more focused on like the hacking bits and all that good stuff, and then now we're gonna get into some cloud stuff. So really, a lot of the things that I teach, and if anyone takes the Pied Hacker experience, you build a cloud in a Pi, more or less. So that's the big thing about the Pied Hacker experience, which is it could also be name exchangeably called the Cloud Hacker experience, because you essentially learn how to take a Raspberry Pi and then set it up to be a device that others can log into, that you can, make vulnerable, that you can also make secure. For what are you trying to do? Are you trying to host something secure? Are you trying to host something to experiment with? That's, what's the goal of this thing that you're trying to build? But either way, you can take this one little device, whether it's a Raspberry Pi or something else, and then basically make whatever said device host. And if we're logged into Facebook hosts, or if we're logged into YouTube or whatever you're watching this on right now, that's something that's hosted. And so if something's hosted, then historically it's like we have web servers, which we still have web servers, but web servers have changed into these more cloud web servers, which is something that it's kind of I always felt like it came from a marketing gimmick. Because I remember we were building cloud technology in 2011, uh, and it's the a lot of this is what got me into before Logarithm and all that good stuff. Worked on a cloud called Office Aloft, and Office Aloft was a cloud where you could host people's Microsoft apps or their mail apps or whatever their business apps are, or their engineering apps, and in this cloud. And then we would give them these thin clients, like these really tiny systems that they would put on their desk. Those are thin clients, and then you plug a monitor into these thin clients, and then voila, like this person's tiny thin client computer that has no power lets them use all their tools, but those tools come from this cloud that we built. Well, at the time, the problem was in a lot of ways that the internet wasn't as fast as it is now, or affordable and as stable in a lot of ways. But now internet has come a long ways since 2011, 2012. As a matter of fact, we didn't even have the same type of RAM, which actually makes a, well, to an extent we did, but it makes a difference anyways. The accessibility of like RAM speeds and all kinds of things makes a really big impact on, can we host things in the cloud, like give someone a desktop experience on their, like on a computer, to make it feel like, if we have some flimsy little device plugged into a monitor, can it do all the things a big beefy server system can do that connects to it remotely? So like kind of like remote streaming a gaming thing. So if anyone's ever heard of like Steam Link, if you're a gamer, you've maybe heard of Steam. And then there's something called Steam Link that probably even few of you have heard of, which lets you stream Steam to a thin client, actually, is what that is. So it's the same technology that Steam even lets you use in your home. So all this, whatever this crazy madness I'm talking about is, like, you could host Steam games in a cloud. But anyways, there's gonna be a lot more madness that I'm gonna be talking about later today. Because we are adding something new to what we've been doing, which is pretty neat. But one thing I'd like to really talk about is we are basically creating. Let me move this over here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a cloud underground, and I'm going to talk about what this is, because this is going to get real complicated here, but we're going to simplify it. This is going to be the first time I talk about this. You guys ready? This is going to sound crazy, but we're gonna do this. So Cloud Underground, it's coming, guys. So let me talk about what this is, because I think this is pretty sweet. So we've just been getting, bombarded with idea after idea after idea after idea, and thank you everyone who's been a massive contributor to everything that's going on. I honestly can't even believe that we're doing this. I think this is like probably the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, so we're going for it. So number of members and other people and all this stuff have been helping us in so many ways, and so people like Randall Massey, we have, oh yes, and we have a community manager who's coming into our company, which is going to be part of what I'm going to be introducing, named Sarah Kirk. So if you are connected with me on LinkedIn, you might have seen a post about that, but otherwise she's going to help us really kind of grow and kind of get out there and get some stuff going, because we're going to start doing something that's there for people who are a little more hardcore and want to really get into things just on a regular basis, because that's something that I'm finding that people want. And ultimately, all I really want to do is I just want to build something crazy and just keep building the stuff out, and then just keep scaling it as far as we can scale it and see what the limits look like. And what I mean by that is we had released these like Raspberry Pi cluster cases, which is basically a cloud on your desk. You have these two devices that are designed for you to build a cloud the way that, a data center would work with like Docker or Kubernetes on your desk. So you can have Docker, Kubernetes, or both hanging out in the palm of your hand. Not the biggest thing in the world. And so if you have this little tiny cloud on your desk, that brings a lot of flexibility into what you can do with that. You can basically connect it to another cloud, or you can connect a whole bunch of clouds to clouds. And so this is where we get into something that's super confusing. Is I've been talking about multi-cloud, I've been talking about hybrid cloud, I've been talking about multi-architectural clouds and multi-architectural hybrid clouds. They're not all the same, even though they all sound really similar. But like, this is stuff that I've been like nerding out on for years. And like, I love data center architecture and infrastructure and all of those things. But the thing that I'm like really into, that I don't think I really talk about much, is I have this like fascination with like streaming technology and anything that lets me like structure different ways to stream things. And I do like other things like machine learning and AI and stuff like that too. But like, so I found a way to build a full brokering system that can basically really allow us to use artificial intelligence with everything we've been building. And that comes in the form of this thing called the Jetson Nano. And I'll tell you why this is interesting and exciting to me. Because basically, if you're building a data center and you need to get certain forms of graphics acceleration, the Jetson Nano is not particularly anything new, but they're coming out with a lower cost model that makes it easier to add basically like affordable AI compute nodes to an affordable cluster. So, like, if you're trying to build a home lab and you're trying to do all these things, normally you could spend like $2,000 or something along those lines to get a graphics card. Let's see if I go to like NVIDIA. I think they're like NVIDIA Core graphics cards or something. So this is like not a gaming graphics card or a normal graphics card, but let's see if I can find what I'm looking for. Because NVIDIA has a big presence in the data center space. Let's see. Let's see if I don't take too long. I'm going to try to find what I'm looking for. I don't know why I don't remember what these things are called ever, but anyways, maybe I won't make you guys suffer over oh, this is what I'm looking for. Data center GPUs. This is what I want. Basically, I'm too tired to articulate this very well. But I've been obsessed with this technology for so long. Like I'm a big fan. I'm a little bit of a. I wouldn't call myself a fanboy of Nvidia because I modify everything. I've modified the snot out of AMD cards, and I've modified the snot out of Nvidia cards, and anything I can get my hands on. I like to modify things, if I'm just gonna be blunt. And like I've been working on this tool or whatever, but then I found a way to modify data acceleration for data, workloads. All of this is what I want. This is all I've ever wanted to just like add to the work that we've been doing. And while I've been working on building it with the Raspberry Pi is not it's different. It's a different architecture. It's basically like a graphics card. If anyone's a gamer, then you know that like a processor and a graphics card are not quite one and the same. Like it's still a processor and a processor, but one's like a graphics processor. They use different architectures. That's all that matters. Everyone doesn't necessarily need to know what that means. But basically, you can just add these things essentially like you would add graphics cards in a data center is what you can do. So I found a way to make this happen in an affordable way that would allow us to build scalable cloud. And what this means is that we can quite literally build with, if we take if we use Jetson Nanos as what would be called brokers, basically, because I was building out Kubernetes brokers over the weekend. Actually, I was building a Kubernetes broker on Raspberry Pi, and then this announcement I noticed. Let's see, Raspberry Pi 4. So this announcement came out that these things are some pre-orders opening for 2 gigabyte Jetson Nanos, which if I were to add a Jetson Nano to the cluster, I don't need RAM. I just want it pseudocores. It has these things called pseudocores, which you don't need pseudocores to do AI, but when you're trying to crunch certain types of binary or certain types of numbers, it's a lot less legwork if as a developer if you have a different formatting of technology available to you for crunching numbers, and pseudocores are really good for that. I guess that's a way that I could explain it to. I don't know how many of you follow this stuff, but anyways, I'm really excited about that. And so like I think the simple way to say it is it's like adding a graphics card to a Raspberry Pi 4 cluster. I guess you could think of it that way. And the other thing that it does is it does mean that it brings the specs for processing. If you wanted to drop this into an enterprise environment for whatever reason, using a Jetson Nano for like basically like system brokering for Kubernetes, something along those lines, especially for something that's going to collaborate with something like Azure Arc or something along those lines, to work with not just ARM architectures, but to make it work with x86, if anyone knows what x86 is or anything like that. But you can essentially say, hey, Jetson Nano, let's write some code and some things, and with the types of processing that you have, we can add an appropriate amount of these Jetsons to make a conversion for hardware, which is basically how this works. It's a high level. This is a high level thing, anyways. But let's see. I'll make this blue. Say now we can have ARM 2 X. Now, most of you might not even know what this means, so you might want to Google what x86 is. It has to do with processors. And then ARM is a processor type. I've talked about ARM a little bit in some other videos, but we could say that data goes into the Jetson Nano, and now it's not going to just automatically do this. This has to be built. This is what I'm building. And I got all the stuff for it. And this is like, to most people, this is like the most boring stuff on the planet. But to me, I'm like, oh, I can do that. And so if I can do it, I want to. And so that's kind of how it goes for me. And the other thing that's interesting about that is it does mean that I always have something that I can teach people, because my hobby is really strange and people can learn from it, because it's just building cloud. So cloud, it's the same thing, Kubernetes. So what we're going to do, just because I want to prove a point, is we're going to actually build a cloud and then install it in a data center if this project goes well. If the project doesn't go well, we're going to scrap it, and I'm not going to even bother with it. But if this project goes well, basically just that I get enough people who are interested in doing this and wanting to actually build our own cloud. Basically, I'm saying that let's see. We are we're going to build our own cloud. Have you guys heard of like things like folding at home? I mean, we're not going to do folding at home, but I'm going to create something that's going to be basically a community driven project where we're just going to jam. We're like, every month it's going to be DevSecOps to the face, and I will teach everyone how to do all of the things that I'm doing, so that all of you will know how to build cloud from ground up. I'm like, because I've always been about, let's learn by doing. And anyone who's been working with me, or if you've been a student with me, I keep getting the same question. Oh, we want real world experiences. Well, we want real world experiences. Oh, please give us real world experiences. So I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. Let's build a cloud. And because of the architecture we've got for it, we can build AI right into it, because it like just right out of the gate, I'm building a broker with Jetsons where we're going to have the appropriate fixings within this ecosystem that we can build. And an interesting thing about it is we can create our own hosting and stuff like that and figure out some things. And I'm a cybersecurity professional, so I figure out what's going to make things secure and so on and so forth, and figure out how in the world we would manage all of this. But I mean, I'm going to do it. And then if anyone else wants to join in, let's go. So that's pretty much how it's going. And so I'm going to talk more later today. But now people have an idea maybe of what's going on. So the Cloud Underground's coming. We're going to basically just straight up like, who wants to know how to build cloud? If I get enough people, we'll go all the way. If I don't get enough people, I'll build until it no longer makes sense, because I do have to eat and I have to be able to afford to eat. And so I have to find a way to make this pay me to basically do this. And then make sure that we can afford the hosting and all these things. So I do have to figure out what's going to make it affordable for us to build a cloud. And I have some thoughts about that, which I will talk about in depth later today, because it's free coaching Friday already, and so we're having like a double free coaching Friday because I didn't do one last week, so now you get me twice this week. So that's what's happening. But anyways, there's a high level crunch on some things that I'm working on because I'm an ethical hacker. And you'd better believe that if I have an opportunity to hack all of the modern technologies and make them do whatever we want to make them do, like that's what it's all about. So let's actually just make some stuff do whatever we want to make it do. Well, I'm gonna be building. So whoever wants to